This is the Coin It Podcast, sponsored by coincosmo.com.
You know, I never really done it myself, but it seems fascinating to me. And like achieving something, what really is interesting to me is how the cooling process works. Like it never seems to be that even to where it would cool all evenly all at the same time. So when I see something that's very like slickly done like that, right away my brain thinks like, oh wow, that must have been really hard, because all the pours I've ever seen have like, you know, it has character to it. It has its own grooves and gridges, and that's just due to the cooling process.
Yeah, and it's going back to that idea of the final surface on a handcrafted piece of melted silver like that is a series of moments that are captured over maybe a 10-second period that forms that. And so by either adding motion, you're manipulating the motion, controlling the length of that time from when it starts to solidify. I have some pieces that I call my transition series, where I try to capture what actually happens molecule wise. It's kind of like a volcanic basalt in the region where I live in Washington State. So it's what fascinated me about it was, okay, what's happening here and how can I capture it? Adding vibration, eliminating vibration, changing how fast you cool it and from what maximum temperature you cool it, whether you hold and hover right at the solidification temperature, you know, so it's kind of a game for me to see, okay, well, how do you do this? But with some of it, you know, and a lot of the things that I'm doing through AppMix are those things that it's in some sense a recipe. And in order to sell in that context, you need everything to look pretty uniform.
Right.
At least in the way that we're trying to do our partnership. And so that's kind of a rinse and repeat. Once you put in the time, it's like the Picasso napkin story where the lady comes to him in the bar and says, hey, draw me something on this napkin. And he does and says, okay, that's like $2,000 or whatever a large amount would have been. And she says, that only took you 30 seconds. It's like, no, that took me 30 years to figure out how to do that in 30 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, otherwise, you wouldn't have asked me to draw it. You'd have drawn it yourself.
Yeah.